My name's Adam, I'm 38, and I've been married to my wife, Vanessa, 35, for almost 11 years. We met in our 20s, and she had this confidence that pulled me in right away, sharp, witty, beautiful, the kind of woman who could make a room turn toward her. She was always a little fiery, sometimes even mean, but I convinced myself that was just her being strong. For a long time, we looked like the picture of stability. We bought a house, built our careers. I'm an engineer, she's in sales, and became that couple among our friends. The ones everyone said were solid. But behind the curtains, things started changing about a year ago. The signs were subtle at first. She started guarding her phone like it was gold, always face down, always locked. She stopped wanting to spend evenings together, choosing happy hours with coworkers. Instead, our intimacy went from steady to non-existent, and every time I asked if something was wrong, she'd bite my head off. "God, Adam, you're so paranoid. Can't you let me have a life?" she'd snap, rolling her eyes. I wanted to believe her. I told myself it was just stress from work, the grind of sales targets and endless travel. I didn't want to be the insecure husband who couldn't trust his wife. But the feeling in my gut kept growing louder. Something was off. Way off. And soon enough, I was about to find out the truth in the ugliest way possible. The night it all came crashing down was a Thursday. Vanessa told me she had a late dinner with a client, and that she might stay at a hotel downtown to avoid the long drive home. That wasn't unusual anymore, so I didn't push. I ordered some wings, watched a game, and figured I'd catch her in the morning. At around 11:45 p.m., I took the dog out and noticed something odd. Her car parked 2 blocks away, just sitting there. My stomach dropped. If she was in a hotel downtown like she said, what the hell was her car doing here? I walked over, and sure enough, it was hers. Empty. I stood there in the dark, my pulse pounding in my ears, trying to convince myself there was some innocent explanation. But deep down, I already knew. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. I checked her phone. She had changed the passcode a few weeks earlier, but I guessed it in 2 tries. Her favorite designer brand and our anniversary year. And there it was. A text thread with someone saved as Nicole work. But the messages weren't between her and a Nicole. They were between her and a guy named Trevor. "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. We have to be more careful. Your husband's not dumb. Next weekend, same hotel? I'll book it earlier this time." My hand shook as I scrolled. Then came the photos. Blurry, late-night selfies. Her in a hotel room bed, grinning, his arm draped over her shoulder. My whole world tilted sideways. Every late night, every fight, every cold shoulder suddenly made horrifying sense. Vanessa wasn't just cheating. She was lying to my face every single day. That evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Vanessa walked through the door all dressed up, humming like nothing in the world was wrong. I was sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in front of me. The second she saw it, her smile vanished. "What the hell are you doing with my phone?" she snapped, her voice sharp, defensive, almost like she'd been rehearsing it. I told her straight. I'd seen the messages. The photos. Everything. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "You're unbelievable. You seriously went snooping through my phone? That's so pathetic, Adam." I didn't budge. I pressed her about Trevor. First, she tried denial. "You're imagining things. He's just a friend from work. You're twisting it in your head." When I quoted her own text back to her, she shifted. "Fine, we flirted a little. Big deal. You act like I killed someone." When I didn't let up, she snapped. "Okay, yes, we slept together. Are you happy now?" Is this the drama you were dying to create? I just stood there, numb, waiting for something, an apology, a tear, anything. Instead, she smirked and twisted the knife. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have needed to. It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. Not only had she admitted to it, but she was blaming me. Blaming me for her lies, her betrayal, her choice. That was the night my marriage cracked in half. The shock hit me first. My whole body felt frozen, like I was watching the scene from outside of myself. For months, I told myself I was just paranoid, overthinking things. And now my worst fears were staring me in the face, confirmed by her own words. Then the anger rushed in. It was hot, explosive, uncontrollable. I slammed my hand on the counter so hard a glass rattled and nearly broke. Do you even realize what you've done, Vanessa? You destroyed us! I shouted, my voice cracking. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't even look guilty. She just crossed her arms and said, God, Adam, calm down. It was just sex. Stop acting like I murdered someone. Just sex. Those words felt like a blade twisting in my chest. 11 years of marriage reduced to 2 dismissive words. I stormed out of the house, pacing up and down the driveway like a madman, trying to stop myself from punching a wall. Inside, I could hear her clattering dishes, like I was the crazy one for caring that she'd blown our marriage apart. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, my head in my hands, replaying her voice over and over, boring, pathetic, just sex. Every time I thought I couldn't feel worse, the anger came back, hotter and heavier than before. And yet, beneath the rage, I felt something even worse creeping in. The realization that the woman I loved didn't just betray me, she didn't respect me at all. After the storm of anger passed, I was left with nothing but emptiness. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee in front of me, staring at the wall like it could give me answers. My body felt heavy, my chest hollow, like there was nothing left inside me. Vanessa came downstairs in her robe, scrolling through her phone like the night before hadn't even happened. She didn't say a word to me. She poured her coffee, sighed, and went back upstairs. That indifference stung more than her confession. At least anger meant she cared enough to fight. This was her telling me, without saying it out loud, that I didn't matter anymore. The sadness hit in waves. I thought about our wedding day, how she cried when she promised me forever. I thought about the vacations where we held hands and talked about growing old together. Even the little rituals, the Friday movie nights, the way she used to tease me about my terrible singing in the car, suddenly felt like lies. Were those moments real? Or had she just been acting the whole time? At work, I went through the motions. My coworkers asked if I was okay, and I lied. Just tired. The truth was, I barely ate, barely slept, and when I did, I'd wake up in a sweat, hearing her voice in my head, "You're boring." Just sex. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was humiliation. And the worst part? Some twisted part of me still wanted to believe I could fix it, even though she was tearing me apart piece by piece. I thought I'd already seen the worst of it, but the universe had more gut punches lined up. It was like once the first truth cracked open, everything else started spilling out. A week after the confrontation, my buddy Mark called me. His sister works in the same company as Vanessa. He sounded hesitant, but finally said, "Man, I don't know how else to say this, but everyone at her office knows. She's not even discreet. People have seen her and Trevor leaving together, checking into hotels during conferences." My stomach twisted. Everyone knew. Everyone except me. I wasn't just betrayed. I was the fool of the entire office gossip mill. Then I remembered her Chicago conference from a few months back. She had made such a show of packing her suitcase, even FaceTimed me from a hotel room. But one night, after a few glasses of wine, she slipped up and mentioned a restaurant she supposedly went to there, except it was a seafood place here in town. And then came the receipt. I found it stuffed in her purse while I was looking for the car insurance card. A hotel just 20 minutes away, dated the same weekend she claimed she was at her mom's helping with yard work. She didn't even bother hiding it. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it this time. She just smirked and said, "You're obsessed. Do you hear yourself? You sound pathetic. Maybe if you were half the man Trevor is, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere." That was when it hit me. She wasn't just cheating. She was enjoying watching me unravel. Like every new lie she got away with made her stronger while it hollowed me out. And I realized I was no longer living with my wife. I was living with someone who wanted me broken. The breaking point came on a Saturday night. I'd spent the whole day cleaning the house, trying to distract myself while Vanessa was out with friends. By now, those words might as well have been code for with Trevor. She stumbled through the door around midnight, drunk, laughing into her phone. She didn't even bother hiding it, kissy emojis flashing across her screen as she tossed her heels on the floor. I asked, "Where have you been?" My voice was calm, too calm, and maybe that's what made her smirk. "Out. Why do you care?" she said, brushing past me like I was invisible. That broke something inside me. I snapped. I laid everything out. The fake conferences, the hotel receipts, the co-workers who'd seen them together. My voice cracked as I told her I was done being made into a fool. She stared at me for a moment, then laughed. Laughed? "God, Adam, you're pathetic. You should be grateful someone like me even stuck around this long." I slammed my fist on the counter so hard a plate shattered. My dog bolted upstairs. My chest was heaving, my face burning, and all I could yell was, "Do you even care what you've done? You destroyed us." Her response? A shrug. Then, casually, she tossed back, "You'll get over it. Men always do." And with that, she walked upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, and left me standing in the kitchen shaking so hard I could barely breathe. That was the moment I knew it wasn't just broken, it was finished. After that fight, the house turned into a morgue. No yelling, no apologies, just silence thick enough to choke on. She moved into the guest room, carrying her pillow and phone like a queen making a dramatic exit. "I need space," she said flatly, as if I'd been the problem all along. We became strangers under the same roof. She came and went as she pleased, never explaining, never asking. Sometimes she wouldn't even come home until morning. When I asked where she'd been, she smirked and said, "Why do you care? You already know." When she did speak, it was only to twist the knife. "Don't wait up. Trevor actually enjoys my company. Maybe if you grew a spine, I wouldn't have to go elsewhere. You salt too much. It's pathetic." Each comment landed like a punch, but I stopped swinging back. What was the point? It was like arguing with a brick wall that enjoyed watching you bleed. So I shut down. My life shrank to routines: work, come home, feed the dog, sit on the couch, stare at the TV without watching. I avoided the guest room like it was cursed. And sometimes, late at night, I'd hear her laugh behind that door. Not the laugh I used to know, but a flirty, giddy laugh she once reserved for me. Now it belonged to him. That was when I realized the marriage wasn't just dying, it was already a corpse, and I was the only one still mourning it. The final nail in the coffin came when Vanessa told me she had to fly to Miami for a big sales conference. She made such a show of it, printed itinerary, suitcase packed with business outfits, even asked me to drop her at the airport. She kissed me on the cheek at the curb like nothing was wrong. That night, while she was supposedly on a plane, my phone buzzed. It was my friend Mark. He and his wife had gone out downtown, And guess who they spotted at a rooftop bar? Vanessa. Not in Miami. Not at a hotel. Laughing, drinking, leaning into Trevor like a love-struck teenager. Mark's wife snapped photos, just to make sure I believed it. When Vanessa came home 2 days later, suitcase in tow, she walked through the door humming like she'd just closed the deal of her life. I asked her casually, "So how was Miami?" She launched into a performance, complaining about long meetings, bad hotel coffee, even turbulence on the flight. I let her finish, then pulled out my phone and showed her the pictures. Her face went pale for half a second, then twisted into that same condescending sneer. "Mark's wife has always hated me. Of course she'd try to stir up drama." When I kept pressing, she snapped, "So what if I lied? You've been suffocating me for years. Trevor makes me feel alive." There it was. No excuses left. No pretending. She admitted it like it was a badge of honor, like I was the fool for not realizing sooner. And in that moment, whatever thin thread of hope I had left snapped clean in two. After that blow-up, I hit a low I didn't know was possible. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was humiliation. Everyone seemed to know. Her co-workers, our friends, maybe even strangers who saw her parading around with Trevor. I felt like the last fool in on the joke. Nights were the worst. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake on the couch with the dog at my feet, staring at the ceiling, hearing her voice on repeat. "Trevor makes me feel alive." Those words carved into me like acid, eating through whatever pieces of me were left. I stopped eating properly. Coffee in the morning, maybe a sandwich if I remembered. My clothes started hanging off me, and people at work began to notice. "You okay, man? You look sick," a coworker said one day. I forced a smile and muttered, "Just tired." At the office, I was a ghost, staring at spreadsheets, not understanding a thing on the screen. My boss finally pulled me aside. "Adam, is everything all right at home?" I wanted to scream that my wife was tearing my life apart, but all that came out was, "Yeah, just a rough patch." At home, it was worse. Vanessa barely stayed there anymore, and when she did, she locked herself in the guest room, laughing on the phone with him like I was already dead to her. The silence in the rest of the house was suffocating. That was rock bottom. Rage, sadness, numbness, all mixed together into one crushing weight. I wasn't living anymore. I was just existing in the ruins of a marriage that had burned to the ground. One night, I sat alone in the living room with the dog curled at my feet and realized something terrifying. If I stayed, this would kill me. Not with one big blow, but slowly, piece by piece. My confidence, my health, my sanity. Vanessa wasn't going to change. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. So I pulled out a notebook and drew 2 columns, stay and leave. Under stay, I wrote, more lies, more humiliation, more nights alone, more of her contempt. Under leave, I wrote, pain, fear, uncertainty, but also freedom. Peace. A chance to breathe again. For the first time in months, the answer felt clear. Staying was death by 1,000 cuts. Leaving was ripping the bandage off in one brutal motion, but at least it meant the wound could start to heal. The next morning, I told Vanessa I wanted a divorce. I braced for tears, for rage, for some kind of fight. Instead, she laughed. She actually laughed. "Good luck, Adam. No one else is going to put up with you. Trevor already promised he'll take care of me." Her words burned, but in a strange way, they freed me. She thought she was cutting me down, but all she really did was prove I was making the right choice. I was done. The morning after I told her I wanted a divorce, I called a lawyer. Sitting in that office felt like dragging in the corpse of my marriage and laying it on his desk. I told him everything, the lies, the hotel receipts, the fake trips. He didn't sugarcoat it. Adam, she's made her choice. Now you make yours. File quickly and protect yourself. So I did. I spent days pulling together bank statements, mortgage documents, insurance papers, tax returns, every tether that tied us together. Each page felt like peeling off a piece of my life. When the papers were finally served, Vanessa barely blinked. She smirked and said, "Finally! Don't think you're screwing me over. Trevor already said he'll take care of me." She said it with such smugness, I almost laughed. It was like she thought she'd won a prize. Packing up was brutal. Every corner of that house had memories. The couch where we binge-watched shows, the framed photos from trips, even the chip mug she once bought me. Just because. I boxed what was mine, left the rest. I told myself, things are just things, peace is worth more. There was one thing I refused to leave, the dog. She didn't even argue. Maybe because she knew he'd choose me anyway. He'd been my only source of loyalty through this nightmare. The day I set the keys on the counter and walked out, I felt gutted. But beneath the heartbreak, there was a strange lightness. My marriage was dead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I might actually live again. Moving into my new apartment felt surreal. It was small, plain, and barely furnished, but it was mine. No tension, no lies, no Vanessa. Just me and the dog. The first nights were brutal. I kept catching myself doing things out of habit, setting out 2 mugs in the morning, cooking too much dinner, reaching for the other side of the bed. The emptiness was like a punch to the gut every time. The silence was different too. In the house, silence had been suffocating, thick with her contempt. Here, it was clean. Peaceful. The dog adjusted quicker than I did. He followed me everywhere, curling up beside me at night like he knew I needed him. Honestly, I think he saved me from completely losing it. Still, the aftershocks hit hard. Mutual friends didn't know what to say, giving me pity eyes. I'd stumble across pictures of Vanessa and Trevor on social media, smiling like they hadn't burned my life to the ground. Some nights, I'd wake up in a sweat, hearing her voice in my head. "You're pathetic. Trevor makes me feel alive." But slowly, I started to notice something. The longer I was away from her, the clearer things became. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't boring. I wasn't worthless. I had been loyal to someone who thrived on tearing me down. It still hurt like hell, but for the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could breathe again. As the weeks passed, the fog started to lift, and I began seeing everything for what it really was. Vanessa's affair wasn't some random mistake. It was the last straw in years of contempt I had ignored because I didn't want to admit the truth. I thought back to all the little digs. The way she'd roll her eyes when I talked about work. The sarcastic comments about my dad bod. The way she made me feel like I was always one step below her. I used to laugh it off as her being fiery. But no, it was disrespect. And I let it slide for far too long. The cheating just ripped the mask off. She never respected me. Maybe she never really loved me in the way I thought. To her, I was stable, convenient, a safety net. And when that wasn't exciting enough, she found someone else and blamed me for her choices. I started keeping a list of lessons so I wouldn't forget. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it usually is. Don't let someone gaslight you into ignoring it. Respect is non-negotiable. Once it's gone, the relationship is already over. Their betrayal isn't your fault. Vanessa cheated because of who she is, not because of who I am. The hardest lesson of all? Realizing that being alone is 1,000 times better than being with someone who makes you feel worthless. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave me a new kind of strength. For the first time, I wasn't looking backward. I was looking ahead. One night, Sitting in my apartment with the dog at my feet, I realized I had a choice: either keep letting the pain define me, or start clawing my way back. Vanessa had already stolen enough of my time, my energy, my self-worth. I wasn't going to let her steal what was left of my future. So I started small. I went back to the gym. At first, it felt pointless. I was just going through the motions, but eventually, it became routine. With every drop of sweat, I felt a little lighter, like I was burning out some of the poison she left behind. I picked up my guitar again, something she used to sneer at. I played until my fingers ached, and for the first time in years, I felt joy in doing something purely for myself. I even started cooking real meals again, experimenting in the kitchen without anyone rolling their eyes. I forced myself to reach out to friends I'd been avoiding. At first, it was humiliating to admit what had happened, but every time I told the truth, the shame lifted a little. It wasn't mine to carry, it was hers. Therapy helped too. My therapist told me, "You don't have to erase the past. You just have to stop letting it control you." That line stuck. I didn't need to pretend it hadn't happened. I just needed to reclaim myself from it. And slowly I did. I wasn't the man she tried to break. I was the man who survived her. When the divorce was finalized, I expected to feel gutted. Instead, I felt free. Signing those papers was like cutting the last thread tying me to the chaos. The pain was still there, but it wasn't dragging me under anymore. I started rebuilding. My apartment, once just 4 walls and a mattress, slowly became home. I bought furniture I actually liked instead of what Vanessa thought was classy. I painted a wall a bold color just because I could. I hung up posters, filled shelves with books, and for the first time in years, my space looked like me. I said yes to things I used to avoid. Friends invited me out, and I went. I laughed, I drank, I remembered what it felt like to enjoy life. I even took a weekend trip to the mountains, hiking a trail I'd always wanted to see but never did because she wasn't into that stuff. Standing at the top, looking out over the valley, I realized how much of the world I'd missed while I was chained to someone who dragged me down. The silence at home felt different too. In the old house, it was suffocating, filled with tension and contempt. In my apartment, it was peaceful. It wasn't loneliness, it was freedom. I wasn't fully healed, but for the first time in a long time, I had hope. Hope that life after her wasn't just possible, it might even be better. Even though I had cut Vanessa out of my life, the world seemed determined to keep me updated. Mutual friends, co-workers, even acquaintances couldn't help dropping little tidbits. At first, the updates hurt like hell. A friend told me he'd seen Vanessa and Trevor at a nice restaurant, holding hands across the table, laughing like teenagers. I pictured her giving him the same smile that used to be mine, and my chest tightened like a vice. But then the stories started to change. Someone told me Trevor was still married when the affair started, and that his wife had found out. The fallout was ugly: lawyers, custody battles, screaming matches in parking lots. Suddenly Vanessa wasn't just the woman who cheated on me. She was the woman who helped blow up someone else's family too. Months later, I heard they were fighting constantly. People saw them arguing in public, her storming out of bars, him chasing after her. Rumors spread that she was already getting close to another guy behind his back. The old me would have obsessed over that, dissected every detail, maybe even felt vindicated. But instead, I just felt relief. Whatever chaos she carried, it wasn't mine anymore. That circus wasn't my problem. And for the first time in a long time, I was glad. With Vanessa gone, I finally had the space to figure out who I was without her voice tearing me down. For years, I bent myself into whatever shape I thought would keep the peace, biting my tongue, walking on eggshells, convincing myself her contempt was just attitude. Now I didn't have to anymore. I picked up my old hobbies again. I played guitar late into the night, something she always called noise. I joined a local hiking group and spent weekends on trails, breathing air that didn't taste like resentment. I cooked new recipes, burned a few dinners, laughed about it, and for once, no one mocked me. Bit by bit, I felt myself returning. I looked in the mirror and didn't just see the man who got cheated on. I saw someone who had survived it. Someone who had chosen himself after years of being chosen last. Therapy helped too. My therapist told me, healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building the future you deserve. That line stuck. I wasn't trying to rewind my life to before Vanessa's betrayal. I was building a new one without her shadow looming over me. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Not because of someone else's validation, but because I was finally rediscovering myself. Acceptance didn't arrive like some big revelation. It was slow, almost sneaky, settling in over time. One day, I realized I hadn't checked Vanessa's social media in weeks. Another day, her name came up in conversation and my chest didn't tighten. The memories were still there, the wedding, the vacations, the inside jokes, but they felt like someone else's story. Distant, blurry, stripped of the power to hurt me. Even the painful parts, the fights, the gaslighting, the betrayal, were no longer fresh wounds. They were scars. And I stopped asking why. Why she cheated. Why she lied so easily. Why she treated me like garbage. The truth is, no answer would have made sense. She cheated because that's who she is, not because of who I am. One evening, I sat on my balcony with a beer, my dog stretched out at my feet, and it hit me. I was at peace. Not euphoric, not over it, in the way people imagine, just calm. I didn't want her back. I didn't hate her anymore either. She simply didn't matter. That's what acceptance felt like. Finally realizing the past no longer owned me, and that I could walk forward without dragging her ghost along with me. Looking back, Vanessa's betrayal was the most painful experience of my life, but it was also the thing that forced me to grow. I thought it would destroy me. Instead, it broke me open and made me rebuild from the ground up. If you're reading this because you feel something is wrong in your relationship, here's what I want you to know. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't let anyone gaslight you into doubting yourself. Respect is non-negotiable. Love without respect is just control dressed up as affection. Once contempt enters the picture, it's over. Their betrayal isn't your fault. Cheating is about their character, not your worth. Don't carry their shame. Leaving hurts, but staying kills you. Walking away feels like tearing your heart out, but it's the only way to start healing. Today, I'm not the man Vanessa tried to break. I'm stronger, calmer, and finally free. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I know one thing. I'll never let anyone make me feel small again. And if my story helps even one person realize they don't have to live in misery, then it was worth sharing. Because if I survive this, you can too.